Marcus up to drop another truth bomb on us and speak a little bit about his experience as a former Centrelink worker and also his new hat as a social policy researcher at RMIT University. So please welcome Marcus.
I'd rather not use that. Am I loud enough if I talk at this volume? Okay. Thank you. Now I've pulled together a couple of things. I only want to make 2 points. I want to step back a bit and ask 2 questions. Who benefits from welfare? And secondly, how can we fight back? So I've only got 10 minutes, so I thought I'd just focus on those 2 issues. Like, who really benefits from welfare? Is it the people who receive these payments? Or is it the people who are running the system? Is it the people who run capitalism? Why do they spend so much? Welfare, according to a Treasury paper a couple of years ago, costs more than, the expenditures are more than defence, infrastructure, transport, health and education combined. Why don't they just let people die? Why do they actually give any money to people on welfare? And I think that one of the main things, I think we need to turn the question around and put the focus on who actually does benefit. Because the real benefit is for the labour power, the capitalist bosses get in this country. Because up until, the end of the 1800s, they were quite happy to let people die. They're quite happy to let kids die in the mines and people die because they have more people coming in from the countryside, like it's happened until recently in China. That was fine. But what happens when there's no more people from the countryside to bring in? You're going to have to get a reproduction of labour. You're going to have people raising kids. You're going to have a situation that was occurring in Sydney in the 1890s where especially single mums who were raising their kids, that the rate of infanticide and child deaths caused by starvation and by absolute poverty was higher than in London. The maternity allowance that was brought in 1912 was on the basis of the bosses bringing it in. They knew that they had to bring in a whole new, they had to keep on churning through new layers of labour, educated, fit, disciplined labour for making profit. And so maternity allowance is brought in Australia because the Argus at the time, a newspaper at the time, was saying that what was happening in Sydney was race suicide. There was a racist element to it as well, that there needed to be a population growth and defence of national business in Australia. Same with child endowment, childcare benefit that's brought in World War II. When they talk about populate or perish and the massive immigration program, before that, in the Menzies government, before that was the idea of having bigger families. And the idea there also was to compete more effectively in world markets and for employers to be able to do that. They're the ones who benefit. They're the primary ones who benefit for welfare. They're the primary ones who benefit from the education and for health systems. They're the ones who benefit, and we should not let them off that hook and get into a defensive mode of saying, oh, we deserve this, we deserve that. Yes, that's true, we do, and we deserve much more, but it's not, we can't lose from our minds that they are the ones who really are benefiting from that. Childcare benefit, a paper was done a couple of years ago about by a family and community, Department of Family and Community Services researcher who estimated that for every dollar outlay by the government for formal childcare, $8 was leveraged in economic benefits and $1.86 was returned to the government in tax by the woman who was working. So they actually benefit from these things. It's not charity. It's not some sort of handout. It's not welfare. Even the word welfare and safety net and all these terms should be turned upside down, and that we have to see with the cold glare of light why this is happening. Why women's participation rates was a big fight. The European Union in 2000, the Lisbon Treaty, said we need to increase maternal labour, which is what they call women who've got dependent children, maternal labour participation rates from 50% to 60% by the year, within 10 years. The US was already at that figure. Australia was 5% below that. Now you might think that that's not very much, but the Productivity Commission said for every 2% increase in participation rates by women, it was going to increase GDP by 1.75%. It's for the economic benefit of capital that welfare exists. Now they need to do it as cost effectively as possible. Work for the Dole is a massive success. Income management is a screaming success. Having a horrible Centrelink office where you have to bring a packed lunch. I used to work at Moreland Centrelink for 10 years. That's fantastic. It's perfect. What else would they want? It's a tax on work. Yeah, the work for the Dole has to be horrible because they're not the target. They're the periphery. The core is people working. You've got to say, I will keep my work. I will not want to go on to Centrelink. I will be disciplined in terms of putting in pay claims and going for better conditions and wages. And so they've actually, the Productivity Commission, yet again, did an estimate on the productivity benefits of work for the Dole. They didn't look at people on work for the Dole. They looked at the productivity benefits in keeping a downward pressure on the minimum wage rate. They said it put a 2% downward pressure on the minimum wage rate. They know what the game is. The other point, and I've only got a couple of minutes, is about fighting back. The Dole. When did the Dole come about? 1930. How did the Dole come about? It was about fighting with radical groups, Communist Party at the time, for, people couldn't get anything when they were unemployed. Remember, this is during the Depression. People fought. There was various groups that were set up. One of them had organised demonstrations outside Myers. 1,500 people organised out the front shops, the shop front of Myer, to actually, they had nighttime trading at the time. Myer was screaming because they were losing so much trade. The Herald that night, the night after, said that they needed to bring in an increase. There was they won a 50% increase in the Dole for people that were working at the time on the Shrine of Remembrance, the Great Ocean Road, the Boulevard. These were fights, and these had radical tactics. Single mothers, how did the single mother's pension come in? 1971, Miss Australia from Adelaide. The confidence about organising in that way, we can learn from history, and we can learn about what Paz was saying, that we need to link it in, to see it as a social wage, to see that what we're getting in terms of a family tax benefit, childcare benefit, unemployment payment, whatever, most people, unless you're running the place, at some point have to go into Centrelink. It's part of life. It's part of living, where you have these business cycles. There's 1 million jobs created between 2004 and 2008. Last 3 years, a third of that. Okay, so it's a business cycle. They have to keep a reserve army to keep to keep managing things. It's like having stock in a warehouse that they can pull out, so long as it's disciplined and it's still fairly healthy and it'll do what it's told. Then that's the way that they operate the system, and it's to their benefit in terms of having new layers of workers come through and having them fit, healthy and disciplined. Thanks.